Good evening. This is the 8-hour workday with Rex Haymarket, where every crisis somehow becomes your bill and their bonus. Tonight, a message from the future. Not the fun kind, the expensive kind. Because Britain just gave America a preview of what an oil shock looks like when it stops being a headline and starts being a household expense. And as your British host, I regret to inform you that this is one of those moments where my homeland gets humiliated slightly ahead of schedule, so yours can pretend it still has time. In Britain, inflation rose again, and one of the clearest warning signs was fuel. Petrol prices jumped hard. That matters because fuel is one of the fastest ways a geopolitical crisis turns into a domestic bill. A war disrupts energy flows. Oil jumps, fuel gets more expensive. Transport gets more expensive, business costs rise, airfares rise, food gets nudged higher. And then one morning, the inflation report lands on the table, smelling faintly of petrol and failure. Now here is where the American conversation gets very stupid very fast. Because every time this happens, Americans get told the same soothing bedtime story: relax. We're a net exporter of energy now, and the public hears that as, oh lovely, so we're basically immune. No, that is not what it means. America can be a net exporter of energy overall and still not be insulated from crude oil shocks. That is the trick. That is the sleight of hand. When politicians say energy, people hear oil. When they say exports, people hear independence. And when they hear independence, they assume a war near a major oil choke point should not be their problem. But crude oil is still the thing that sets the mood. Crude oil is still the thing that moves first, and crude oil is still a huge part of what you pay at the pump. This is the bit most people never get told. America exports lots of energy. America exports lots of refined fuel. But that does not mean America is magically sealed off from the global crude market. Because the system is not built like a patriotic slogan. It is built like a refinery system. Some refineries are designed for certain types of crude. Some barrels move better through the system than others. Some crude gets imported, some gets refined. Some refined product gets exported. And all of that can be true at the same time. So when people say, hang on, if America exports energy, why am I paying more for gas? The answer to that question is remarkably simple. Because energy exporter is a broad political statement. Crude oil shock is a very specific economic problem. And those specific problems still reach your wallet. How the shock gets to you. First, crude prices jump because traders see risk around supply and shipping. Then refiners pay more or expect to pay more. Then those costs move through distribution. Then your local station updates the sign. Then, a few weeks later, economists show up and tell you they have detected some upward pressure. That lag is the whole trick. Because Britain often looks like it gets hit first. Not because Americans are protected. Because Britain makes the pain official first. America can feel it at the pump before it fully shows up in the big inflation narrative. That is why people get confused. They hear the government say one thing, they hear commentators say another, and then they look up at the gas station sign and reality breaks the tie. So when Britain prints the ugly number first, Americans should not laugh, they should pay attention. Because Britain is not some separate planet with separate oil. It is just the canary. And America has a bad habit of confusing being a net exporter of energy with being safe from the price of crude. Those are not the same thing. They were never the same thing. And every time a war rattles the oil system, reality reintroduces itself at the gas station. This is why these stories matter. Not because everyone needs to become an oil trader. Not because you need to memorize tanker routes. But because you are constantly being sold abstractions. Energy dominance, resilience, independence, strategic flexibility. Those are certainly some lovely words. But what actually matters is much more vulgar. What did the barrel do? What did the refinery do? What did the pump do? And how long until your grocery bill starts acting strange? Britain just gave you the early draft. The petrol shock lands first. Then the inflation report catches up. And the central bank gets nervous. Then, right on cue, the politicians show up and act completely surprised by it all. Then working people get handed the invoice for a war they did not start and an energy system they do not control. So no, the lesson is not that America is powerless. And the lesson is not that Britain is uniquely cursed. The lesson is that when they tell you America is a net exporter of energy, you should immediately ask, fine, exporter of what? Because if the answer is broad enough, vague enough, and patriotic enough, there is a decent chance someone is trying to distract you from the crude. And crude still matters. Crude panics first. Crude sets the tone. And sooner or later, crude sends the bill. I'm Rex Haymarket, and this has been the 8-Hour Workday. Like and subscribe to Clock In. Mind the static, mind the spin, and mind who profits.